and kind of scary and you're nervous and anxious, that lets you know you're in some wilderness. You're in some territory that you cannot predict. And when your nervous system can't predict, it's going to produce anxiety because that's what its function is. Predict. I'm going to take from the past or I'm going to try to figure out the future and I'm going to give you some information. When we're going somewhere where we don't have any experience, we don't have any data, we don't have any information, yeah, anxiety is going to come up. That's the function of what the nervous system is supposed to do. And it's learning to hone into that, to breathe into it, not allow it to stop you. That's why I have the statement slow and steady. Slow things down. If you recognize you're activated, it's very difficult when you're impulsive and you're in that fight or flight. Yet the more you use your tools of practicality, you recognize and you call it out. And once you call it out, there's a different feeling in your body.
Yeah.
There's like that opening that happens.
Emotionally unavailable.
Leo season's here, and if you've been craving the courage to show up and be truly seen, I made something for you. Safe to Be Seen is my new seasonal workbook filled with soul-centered prompts, mirror work, and grounding rituals to help you embody your light without fear. This isn't about performance, it's about presence, and you're ready. Download it now at my website, empoweredwithmelisahepner.org, or you can go to my link tree on my Instagram, and there is a link directly there. Well, welcome. I'm excited to have you. I was looking at your stuff again this morning. I remember from when I was on your show, you know, feeling and even talking a little bit about, how we're kind of doing the same work and maybe came to our wounding a little differently, but how we've kind of recognized that we're all really kind of struggling with very similar things. So I wanted to start with kind of your story, how you, what maybe a previous life of yours looked like, how you even got to where you are now.
Gosh, there's so many lifetimes I've gone through. When people ask me that, I'm like, which one do you want me to talk about?
I know. I answer it differently every time I'm asked, I swear.
Yeah, there's so many different phases that I've gone through. So presently, right now, I would say this phase came from uh, having the lesions in my head 11 years ago and being told I was going to die, and being in the hospital for almost 40 days, and being released without a diagnosis. And so
Oh.
that means without a plan. So being out in the wilderness and having these lesions and they don't know how they got there. They put me through a battery of tests that some were very painful, to then be said, like, we don't know. So try to make it out on your own. So thankfully, a year after that, I learned meditation in the form of TM, transcendental meditation, and that allowed me to really get deeper into my nervous system, to release those, traumatic and energetic and emotional and memory charges because, the body keeps score, and being able to somatically release those things. And so meditation allowed me to surrender those defense mechanisms, to
Mm-hmm.
release those masks and those protective mechanisms. Yet if I go back into my childhood, I've always known about human behavior. I've always known about psychology. I've always had a deep listening ear in a space of non-judgment. So people used to talk to me very openly and I thought everybody had this. Therefore I kind of dismissed some of the skills and the gifts that I do possess. And so now it's like, okay, well, the way that I go about providing services for other people is more deeper than what therapy would bring. There is some talking component, yet I read intuitively people's bodies and tones and bring out the emotional and the things that they're hiding in the shadow for it to be witnessed by their own awareness and by another person, and that it's not being rejected, so that they can come back to an wholeness with a W. Because many of us There's many emotions that we do à la carte with that we don't even know how to feel, or we feel a little bit of it and we push it back down. The main thing is we don't know how to process it and allow it to be integrated in. And so that's the space that I hold because of my own journey. So everything that I provide to somebody else is because I've gone through the experience. It's not just theory or what textbooks say or philosophy. It's a lot of lived experience. So that's where I can hold a sacred space for other people that they can be honest with themselves and better have an understanding about their biology, because I think in a world that tells you you're not good enough and you don't understand or this is too complex for you, where it's like, well, I'm driving in my body and I'm driving in my mind. Should I not have a better understanding of what's going on and not try to fit into what the world says is perfect or good enough, that I can better understand, what my behavior and what my traits are, and some of them that I may have thought were an inconvenience or actually my strength. I just didn't know how to appreciate that and hone into that.
Yeah, that that really makes sense to me. I was curious because your work is trauma informed, which I think I'm not I'm having a hard time wording this, but to me that is a sacred part of the work anyway, is to
Yeah.
be truly trauma informed, not just you attended a workshop, because I've met those people too. But I'm worried to ask you this because I don't want you to feel like I'm asking you this because I'm checking you on something, but I'm curious about how you came to be so because I know that you are. So, what was your path to becoming so informed about this part of trauma, the very specific way to hold someone even in a conversation, because you're really good about we can throw the phrase holding space out there, but like meeting people where they are, I think is a really good way to put it. And I just wonder, I know for me that came pretty innately too, and I'm sure so much of yours is just your gift too, but I just wondered if there was a more specific path.
Of course there is. I just told you I had lived experience. So I have experienced a plethora of different types of trauma. I've explored, emotional trauma. I've had sexual trauma. I've had physical trauma. I've had my own of relating to myself. So there's been, and I've had friends that have been murdered. I've had friends that have just passed away suddenly.
Mhm.
I just recently, a year has come up where my friend passed away and I helped her 18 months through her cancer journey. Myself, like I said, with, the lesions and being told I was gonna die, I'm still processing some of that of trusting my body and better
Yeah.
understanding what are the things that I'm doing that are actually harming myself that I have created as a pattern and, a habit. And so, it stems from early childhood of having those ACEs and really better, like, I separated and I othered myself with the, sexual abuse, and my return home has been in the last decade of, "Oh, you were the one that othered yourself," and really reconnecting into that and recognizing I just didn't have a space so that somebody could help me process everything that was going on. So, my nervous system helped me to disassociate and other so that it could protect those big emotions because it just didn't feel safe to feel it. It didn't feel safe to cry out. It didn't feel safe to put myself first. Everybody else had to be in
Mhm.
that center stage.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something that pulled at me from your profile alone was I'm going to put it this way because this is the way I've been saying it for myself is making the right decisions for the quote unquote wrong reasons. Like, operating from a place of being the golden child or proving someone wrong or living up to an expectation, not because it's your true heart's desire. Or even in my case, I always knew that I wanted to be a helper, but I made a lot of the decisions I made in terms of schooling, etc., to impress someone, to receive validation. I had no real confidence. I knew I would be really good at being a helper, but still, the path to that was full of people pleasing and all kinds of other stuff. And I love the way you are putting othering yourself, because something I did not recognize is I did the same thing. But I think I had this notion of dissociation and separating yourself as more of like, I guess I'm saying this and I did this too, but like living in La La Land. And I did that. It just looked like me fighting with someone in my head all the time, instead of, like the way my 18-year-old looks when he's just like, do, 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 like that. I thought that it was just your head's in the clouds and you're kind of dingy and whatever, but coming home to myself really has meant understanding all the ways in which I separated myself from me and everyone around me. And so when I saw you specifically name, protective measures, like that's something you work with people on, I was like, oh, because, honestly, I didn't even realize some of my protective layers until I was on someone else's show and they called it that. And I was like, yes, like, and it unlocked me understanding. I started pushing my friends away when my dad died, but the narrative to me was they don't know how to support me. They tried really good, actually, and I've talked shit. My friends know I've talked shit about them to their face, but, whatever, this entire since I was 15 years old, 30 years, and it just, like, 6 months ago on someone else's show, I was like, "Oh, that was probably the beginning, actually, of when I decided to confirm that narrative that everyone leaves and no one knows how to be there for me."
Yeah, we
So,
don't
yeah.
realize how insidious it is and how embedded it is. And when you've experienced trauma, vulnerability feels like a real threat. So you don't know how to receive. You're begging for it, you're
Yes.
demanding it, and you're getting angry when people aren't showing up, yet
Yes.
not being able to look at, oh, I don't even know how it feels to receive because it
Yes.
feels too much of a visceral threat to put myself in that state because if somebody doesn't show up, I have to face me and all the plethora of things that come up of rejection, abandonment, blame, doubts, all these kind of things that come up, and not knowing how to regulate, how to integrate and process all of that. And so when you don't have the tools, of course, it's easy to push people away so that
Right.
you don't have to draw people in to show that vulnerability, to allow those soft spots to be revealed. And it takes like I still have protective methods that I'm like, "Oh, here you are again." Like, you hear I'm sick right now. I know to take certain things, and just today was like, "Why did you take this 3 days ago?" And it's like, "Oh, it's, like, so just insidious, like, just suffer and just kinda just stay there." And it's like, "Why are you doing that to yourself?"
You already
And
know, yeah.
yeah, and so it's having that radical compassion when you recognize that that chameleon or that suit has come back in again and, befriend your nervous system. In a world that gets so angry about, "Oh, I should know better," or "I should do this," and unfortunately, that statement about when you know better, you do better,
Oh, it's
that
ruined us,
doesn't
hasn't
really
it?
yeah, it doesn't match up all the time. It
No.
doesn't clean up. Your body has been habituated in doing a certain behavior and habit for so long. To go against that, it's difficult. Like, your body goes through so much, and I don't think there's enough space and conversations to talk about that. It's where people are like, "Oh, I can't believe I," and it's like, that's what being human is. And it's
Right.
having that radical compassion of, "Okay, get back up. And what is the choice you're gonna make?" Not
Yeah.
self-loathe and stay down, and if you do that, then that's again, it's just that's what feels comfortable. Yet the
Mhm.
moment that you can access your choice, access your choice. And whatever that looks like, but access your choice and not denying parts of yourself. Not
Yes.
putting your mind in, "I'm gonna
Resisting.
overpower," and it's like you want to stay whole and have an understanding and choose what is the highest choice I can make without separating myself or disassociating, that everything has to do with catch up.
Yes. Well, and oftentimes I'm telling people, What I'm hearing is you were trying to talk shit to yourself to move.
Yeah.
That's like, we don't want to move from an intellect. We want to move from our body. So, like, if you want to make a choice, it doesn't need to come from shit talk. It needs to come from feeling into what my next step should be. But honestly, when you talk about radical compassion, that's the beginning of everything because you cannot extend to others what you can't extend to yourself. And it wasn't until I got really compassionate with me that I this was probably just like 6 months ago too, and I was sitting there, it was sometime in the last year, but still, I was like, "Wait, wait, 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 shit. You know what? My whole life I've expected," especially once I learned some therapy talk, okay? Because like, "When you, I feel," we just think that blankets everything, and if I feel it, that means you need to care as much as I do, and I have these expectations you need to meet, and blah, blah, blah. I truly believed that if I told you I need this or I need you to not do this, that I tell you once, you never do it again. But that is because that's the standard I held myself to. That I'm
Exactly.
not saying I never did it again, but I sure the hell would beat myself up and hold myself to that cross of perfectionism. And as I was unraveling perfectionism, that's really when I got there to where I was like, damn, we cannot hold people to these standards. Like, what?
Yeah.
And like, you may have to let someone know 1,000 times that this behavior brings this up in you,
Yeah.
and you coexist, you with the emotions, with them, and why they're doing it, all of it, without this expectation of perfection.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it took that compassion for me, like me being able to say, it's okay that you quote unquote know better and you can't just automatically do better. I learned that was part of shame. That is shame to say, Melissa, you know better than that.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's a voice I can hear from childhood. You know
Yeah.
better than that, you know?
And shame is a protective mechanism. I
Mhm.
know people say that shame is garbage and guilt is garbage, and it's like, no, shame is protecting the sensitive part that doesn't know how to come up. So
Doesn't
are
know how
you
to
meeting
experience any of this.
shame? Like, it's
Yeah.
not garbage, it's meeting it and asking, like, "What are you trying to protect? What are
Yeah.
you distracting me from because you don't think I have the ability to connect into this, to experience
Yeah.
this, to feel it?"
And, for so long, I really didn't. I was afraid of everything, and I didn't have the capacity to see it, let alone sit with it. And
Yeah.
just like unraveling over the last couple of years why I've done so many of the things I've done from that place of shame, and how so much of my reactivity was centered in shame because I was shameful about the reactivity itself, but I was also incredibly triggered all the time because I didn't know how to like understand what was happening physically, emotionally, anything because I stayed activated. I'm still easily activated, like
Mhm,
and I'm comfortable saying that may be the case for the rest of my life.
mhm,
I hope that the longer I go, the less. I mean, it's already so much better. So I hope
mhm,
that the longer I go, the less it is. But at the same time, I'm so comfortable with it now. I'm not ashamed of it, and I'm not scared of it. When I'm activated, I just get curious about what happened, or even like I have PMS right now. Doesn't take much,
yeah,
and I'll be like, "Well, honey, there's probably not a lot to that. But let's go to the physical aspects of this. Do you need water? Do you need a nap? Do you need a shower? Do you need to move?" So just getting curious about it. But yeah, I think embarrassed comes up a lot in me just at all the blind spots I had.
mhm,
um but I'm so grateful to have such a practical conversation about this because all the ways that it shows up, it was so sneaky for me, and
yes,
and I love unraveling it. It's one of my favorite things to learn something new about myself, but damn, I thought I knew everything. I
yeah.
sure did.
I don't think we ever learn everything about ourselves because it becomes so insidious that it hides in different places where it's just meeting yourself in the moment, not trying to get to this destination of I got it all figured out or I got this.
Mhm.
It's like, you know what? You know when you're growing, when you have no idea what you're doing and where you are is kind of making you uncomfortable and kinda scary and you're nervous and anxious, that lets you know you're in some wilderness, you're in some territory that you cannot predict, and when your nervous system can't predict, it's going to produce anxiety because that's what its function is. Predict, I'm gonna take from the past, or I'm gonna try to figure out the future, and I'm gonna give you some information. When we're going somewhere where we don't have any experience, we don't have any data, we don't have any information, yeah, anxiety is gonna come up. That's the function of what the nervous system is supposed to do, and it's learning to hone into that, to breathe into it, not allow it to stop you. That's why I have the statement slow and steady. Slow things down. If you recognize you're activated, it's very difficult when you're impulsive and you're in that fight or flight. Yet the more you use your tools of practicality, you recognize and you call it out. And once you call it out, there's a different feeling in your body.
Yeah.
There's like a opening that happens. But when we just like keep going and something's tugging at you, but you're like, nope, 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 nope,
I'm
no, I'm
fine,
not
I'm
gonna
fine.
acknowledge you. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
and then but once you acknowledge it's like it's a different response in your body. There's a different opening that goes on. And that's in a world where we're told, like, constantly bombarded, we're not good enough. We're not to have fear. We're supposed to have it all figured out. And we're
Mhm.
bombarded all the time to be in fear of finances, of war, of environment, of instability. So where can you find peace and clarity? How do people really understand that it comes from internally when they're always trying to grasp it on the external? Because that's
Mhm.
what we're taught, to grasp it on the external. Let somebody else is supposed to take care of you. Somebody else is supposed to do that. Where it's like, no, it begins from inside. Somebody can't take care of you if you're not willing to receive that care. Somebody can't help
Yeah.
you if you're not willing to acknowledge you need help.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that really fits into the idea of like people pleasing. I think that, entire generations of people were raised to believe that you give so that you can receive.
Yeah,
That codependent system didn't come from nowhere. And so all these people and then I became a part of that system where I'm running around loving in the way that I want to be loved, and rather than just giving myself those things I was begging for, and giving from this resentful place, I'm over here mad at everyone because nobody loves me the way I love them. And, no one shows up for me the way I show up for them, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember talking to a friend one time and saying, like, but I did such and such and such and such. And she's like, yeah, but I didn't ask you to do that. Oh, that phrase was the most painful thing someone could say to me. I'm like, "You didn't have to." Okay,
yeah,
because that's who I am. I just run around anticipating your needs so that you can feel loved. So, how good of a person am I? But that's absolutely what I was taught. Give in expectation of reciprocity. Now, I
yeah,
believe in reciprocity, and I don't think that you should be around people who aren't, um or you don't have to surround yourself with people who aren't lifting you up. But
yeah,
you're not giving from a place of expectation at that point either. And you're not giving from your reserves, you're giving from your overflow. So it's just a
exactly.
totally different dynamic. But that's how we end up in that super burnout place, is doing all of these things with an expectation of return. And then for me, you couldn't return it. I was gonna, like, feel disappointed by whatever it was that somebody did, because I wasn't in a place of receivership. I
Yeah,
was still pushing everyone away, and I was gonna find a way to confirm my bias every
yeah,
time. I mean,
yeah.
I see that now. I felt very right then. I was very right about it at the time. But now in hindsight, it's very laughable because I was absolutely just, lying to myself.
Yeah. And just to validate, like, somebody that's listening in and they might be just starting this journey or better understanding themselves. As you mentioned, like, there's this fragility part because everything's sensitive. Everything is like, what's mine? What's theirs? What's here? What's there? And then there's also a part where you're just having to be there for yourself. And once you start being there for yourself, things get much easier, but they get boring because you're no longer running and fixing everybody else. And then you're realizing, oh, I'm not actually needed there. Nobody asked me to be there, yet I went there to occupy myself to distract me from me because I didn't know how to be with me.
Yeah.
And so boredom sometimes has you kick back into patterns because the boredom is just too intense and your nervous system doesn't like it. It likes chaos. It
It
thrives
loves
in
it.
it.
That's
That's
what's
where
familiar. Yeah.
but then it only has so much of a reserve to be in that unless you're supporting it with self-care and different things. So I just want to reinforce that like when you start loving yourself, there is a part where it becomes boring. And then
Yeah.
it's like you see like, oh, nobody's really calling on me and nobody's there for me. So then if you can face that, then you start integrating and you don't kick back into people pleasing because the boredom just feels too intense. And that's where you start reshaping and those neural pathways that we talk about start creating new pathways with your nervous system of what your baseline of being comfort is, that you start changing the uncomfortable into comfortable and you change the comfortable into uncomfortable because a lot of people don't realize they have made home in chaos. It may not
Yeah.
look like that on the outside, yet internally, if you were to take a peek of what's going on inside, it's definitely chaos.
Well, and that's when I noticed when I confronted boredom, that's when I realized so many of my self-sabotaging behaviors came from that place. Like maybe I wasn't running around people pleasing or rescuing or whatever, but I mean, even a really simple way to say it is I'm looking for a dopamine hit, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. But how I unraveled it is I was sitting there and questioning, out of curiosity, what am I feeling right now? Because it's boredom, but I can tell there's a narrative behind this. And it was loneliness, and you're lonely because nobody likes you. And so I was like, well, no fucking wonder I've been trying to, outspend my bank account for so many years in these moments because I don't like the way this feels when I don't have anything to do, and I feel like it's because nobody wants to spend time with me. And I was in shock at how many years that had been on replay for me and how that really did drive so many of the self-sabotaging decisions that I made for myself. And boredom is a big one. But I mean, it's like you just learn how to be with yourself, how to entertain yourself, how to still love yourself in spite of any of your external reality.
Yeah, and it's going into the unknown because the boredom is bringing you into places of relating with yourself in a different way, and that's unknown territory. So it's
Very.
gonna be uncomfortable for a bit. It's gonna be agitating. It's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, this is so stupid," or whatever narrative there may be coming
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
That it's like, "Ugh, how can life be like this? Like, that's just too simple," and it's like, it needs to be complicated, and it's like, no, life is
Uh-huh.
complex, yet there's a simplicity to it that you can ride in and be in. But we're bombarded again with the narrative that we have to be overstimulated and things have to be complicated, and we have to be so resourced out that we end up broke because all those other things are gonna make it all better, where it's like, "Wait, can I just start from within here and start listening?" Like, is I know some people might be listening and be like, "What are you talking about that there's this language or this narrative going on in the background?" And it's like, when you start slowing down, then it starts to be able to tune into that radio station, but when you're always active, it's like a
Yes.
static in the background. You don't know that it's running your behavior. You don't realize it's hijacking your choices because it just feels too painful. Those narratives are very painful. So what we're speaking about is pain because of
Yes.
a thing that we created to insulate ourselves away from pain. Yet when you start going into wholeness, it means being able to face the pain and integrate it. You no longer have
Yeah.
to run away from it.
You know that part of my framework is quiet the noise, and it took so long to even understand what the noise was for me. And I told you that I, learned about shame through the archetypes through this book, and it took a minute for me to be able to go, "Oh, that's what my brain is saying to me," like, at that time. Like, because it was constantly, the whole "you know better," and then, "But I wouldn't have done that if somebody else hadn't done such and such and such," and then just this fight between those 2 and then the other narratives, and for so long, I was trying to describe what was happening whenever I was triggered, and I was like, there's just all these things that light up at once in my brain, and when I slowed down, I was finally able to hear it, and it was such a quick fix for me once I could hear it, but all those years in survival mode, it was there, and I just had no idea. And that's the beautiful thing about the subconscious is it may retain all of that and try to ruin your life for the rest of your life. But when you introduce a new concept and you say, like, in the conscious, this is a change I want to work on, it remembers that too. And I can remember the first time after learning about my shame and kind of breaking that down and what was happening, the first time my subconscious was like, "Hey, remember, like, you said you wanted to slow down and kinda key into what was going on?" And it was such a pause, and, yeah, I think you made me think this too. I don't think, and I could be wrong, but if you ask most people what a life that they are in love with would look like, I don't believe most people are like, "Well, I wanna wake up at 5 and spend every minute of every day busy
Not
until,
me.
like, 10 p.m."
Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously, I love a slow-paced life. I didn't used to have one, but I love it so much now. But, like, I don't think there was ever a time that I would have said that, and yet that's what we're doing to ourselves because we don't know how to access that part of us that is soft.
Well, it's between the doing and being. We've been told that we have to do in order to be. We have been told that we need to be productive to earn our living, earn our worth, earn our way of being. So to just be feels like a threat because it's put with laziness, that you are invalidated, you aren't doing anything with your life. So to just be, it has a lot of negative narratives around it. And that's its own thing that you have to navigate through to allow
Mhm.
yourself that permission to be. But we are always bombarded with productivity. And that's its own addiction also,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
gives you a
That's
sense of
something I would
value.
struggle through a lot. Do you
Yeah.
still,
Oh,
like,
yes,
have to
all
be
the
like,
time.
"It's fine to rest"?
All the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. Because even yesterday when I didn't do it and they were like a friend was like, "You don't have anything scheduled today?" I'm like, no, no, I canceled every." Wow, and even with my retirement, I still get into the productivity, and I think what has really helped me in the past 2 years of really when I'm activated and those defense mechanisms are coming up and I'm trying to talk my way or feel, it's like, "Natalie, where are you?" Just really calling myself out, not being stuck in the narrative of what they did or what I should have did. Where are you right now? And bring that sensitivity out so it can be heard right now. Because our
Mm,
sensitivity and our vulnerability gets layered with so much protection that when it tries to talk, it takes so long to penetrate through that. So I've just helped myself of like, where are you? Where are you right now so I can be with that and you don't have to hide behind the layers of protection, of fear and whatever narratives there is. Yet it took me like 11 years to get to be able to have that language, and it's not a perfect thing. It doesn't always
right.
depend on what the life event, I've had a lot of deaths this year, and so that gets activated with a lot of things, so it's like, "Okay, oh, here," and you know, I unfortunately, I think sometimes people think that once you've gone through healing, everything's gone away, and it's like, no, it's still a part of you, and 20 years later, it could be that visitor knocking on the door and saying, "Hi, I've come to visit again," and you're like, "I thought I got rid of you," and it's like,
Yes.
isn't about getting rid of. It's about being able to integrate so that when the visitor knocks, you're like, "Oh, you're here again. What's the information you have to give me?" Yeah, you're a visitor, you're not hijacking, telling me what to do or take control of things. Let me hear what it is that you want to bring that I may not be aware of what's going on, or there's still a little bit of a charge that I wasn't fully able to release because, it's I know it can feel like an irritation or that your life is being ruined. It's really recognizing how intelligent that nervous system is on protecting you. And if we do not create the accountability to face the pain, to feel the depths of our emotions and what it is to be human, it's going to use the intelligent part of saving you, of protecting you, because it feels like death. And until you start to take that step towards it and allow yourself to see like this isn't going to kill me, it's going to suck and it's going to be awful and I might be out for like a little bit of time. Yet the build back of that resilience will allow me to integrate rather than separate and see two parts of myself that I can be whole with a W in this and I can hold space for myself and not put on these layers of masks. Like maybe it's only one mask I need because we all need a mask. Like this thing about removing all masks, you need masks to work in this world. Like it's very unsafe with people and places and everything else. But many of us have like 20 layers of masks and we don't
Right.
even realize it.
Oh, I sure did.
So it's like, okay, let's remove those and be as authentic as we can. Yet authentic means being able to feel and process your emotions in real time.
Mhm.
And that takes its own practice. And sometimes you're not able to. Like, this
Mhm.
isn't about and that's where I get where people want, uh, let me know what the steps are 1 to A or A to Z, and
Right,
it's
right.
no, it's moment by moment of what's in front of you and how is your capacity? How can you show up? Is this something that's now new to your learning that this is more work? Or is this work that you've been working on so it's easy and it's like, oh, okay, you're just here. It depends on what is presented. And
Right.
unfortunately, we're really taught with this black and white thinking. So if you
Mhm.
said it this way, that measures for everything. And it's like, no, like we have to open it up to see, well, what is the circumstance of that to see how it measures and what that looks like with it.
And it's okay for you to show up imperfectly. Like, you can know the skill really, really well and make an active choice to just show your ass in a situation,
Yeah,
you know,
you're
and then
human.
move on. Yeah,
You're
I
human.
mean, it just is what it is. That one was tricky for me. But I really was under the belief whenever I first started healing that there was a destination in this, that I was going, but that was the pedestal that I had placed everybody else on, that they were so much better than me, that they knew more than me. And again, none of this was really anything that I saw like in the conscious other than the shame over my reactivity and believing that other people just had such better control over their emotions or something because they didn't behave the way I did. But I think that's been the most freeing part of all of this is just to understand that there's not gonna be a time I'm perfect, and so just practicing being really okay with that, and maybe sometimes I am even less productive than what is good for me, like, sometimes I'm sabotaging by not doing something that I should be doing. I don't care. Like, I'm gonna look at it and go, "What was that? What are you trying to protect yourself? Are you not doing that thing because you're afraid of being rejected at the end of the thing?" What is it? But all of our behavior is a teacher if we allow it. So,
And what you're describing is accountability. People think accountability means you're going to do the right thing. No, accountability means being able to acknowledge, I'm choosing not to do that. And you're giving yourself permission for that. You're not going blindly about it. You're being accountable of seeing it. And this is the choice I'm making. Whereas many people, they think accountability is you see it and you're going to just do what is right. Where it's like,
right.
no, 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 there's another part of accountability that I am making the choice not to do this. Even though I know it's not my best interest, I'm not doing it blindly. I'm doing it consciously. And many of us are going with behaviors and actions very asleep, and we're not conscious of it because we don't have that accountability to see and take
Mhm.
responsibility. Take accountability, like, "This is the choice I'm making. I know it might not be the best, but this is the choice I'm consciously making." And then more and more when you do that, you get the information, well, did that serve you? Like, did that feel good? Did that and that's where you can process more and you can be like, "Oh, you know what? That kind of choice doesn't really serve me and I really don't need it because it's just like detaining certain things, but afterwards, it's a big pushback of things, so I don't need to do that. So accountability,
Right.
like you just explained, that and I think that's the wrong again, another word that we get the wrong definition about.
I certainly did. I thought accountability truly meant beating yourself to a pulp when you didn't do the thing. And I love the way that you're framing that. And like even last week, I made a very conscious choice to quit trying to fit the gym because working out, going back to the gym is relatively new. I've just been back in the last like 4 or 5 weeks. Already last week, Thanksgiving week is fucking my schedule up, right? And I was like, I'm gonna just quit right now, even trying to do this week, whatever. I gave it no thought. I was like, we went one time and then it was my oldest son is my little gym buddy. So, I was like, I'm not fighting with this MF who's on school break and whatever. Like he don't want to go. I'm gonna quit trying this week, whatever. Well, by the end of the week, I could feel the difference
Yeah.
between everything. And I was like, yeah, so next week I'm going to be at the gym whether he goes or not. And guess what? He didn't go today and I did. So I was like
Kudos
I
on
was
you.
like, no, I do not have to have him with me and now I'm valuing it in a different way, but I just didn't talk shit to myself last week about not going. It was what it was.
Exactly. And we get the wrong there's a lot of words that we don't realize is giving the definition where the language of the nervous system survival is attached to those words, not really what the complete open and compassionate way of those
Right.
words, the conscious ways. Like being conscious doesn't mean kumbaya and you're going to get everything right. It's
Right.
being able and, learning and having experiences means that you made mistakes. You made errors.
Mhm.
But we have it because of our school system of getting, 100% in the A's. That perfection means that you are learning, where it's like, well, if you know it all, then what are you learning? It's
Right.
in the mistakes and in the experiences that you better can getting lost somewhere is where you can find yourself. It doesn't feel good when you get lost, yet
No.
we forget to, tap into our intuition and look at, different things and look at nature and look at, like, really trust ourselves. And so being lost sometimes is needed so that you can start honing on the skills and the gifts that you have as a human, as an individual that sometimes you thought weren't anything of value, where you just didn't give it the proper opportunity to show itself. So
Yeah.
mistakes are needed. Like you're going to continuously make mistakes till well, for myself, till the last breath I make. And I know it does this to me because, of course, the you should know better, you're using these tools, why would you like especially in my parenting, it's like a lot of like, "Oh my
Oh,
god."
baby, that's yep. Mhm.
I and then it's
Mhm.
like, "Okay, yet are you getting deeper within yourself to better understand yourself?" And releasing some of the narratives and expectations and the stories that you've told yourself that you need to be in these
Mhm.
relationships. Are you
Mhm.
actually being there for yourself to open up to be there for somebody else? And you learn so many different things, and to not think that you won't have any pain. Sure, you can use stoicism with a lot of things, and I do use stoicism with certain things, yet I'm not using it to deny my humanity anymore.
Right. And that is a huge distinction because that is what we've done forever to land in this position anyways, minimalize, trivialize, whatever. Again, I think it's a different paradigm between talking shit to yourself to move through something rather than tuning in to move through something. And yeah, I think too many times I love that you said kumbaya because I know I thought that's how I was going to feel 24/7. I know I did. And I do feel that in the quiet moments, when things are still, I'm very tapped into the kumbaya. Most of the time, I'm not, but I am at peace
Mhm.
because I know how to arrange a life that feels really good for me. And I'm not around people intentionally that I know aren't going to bring out the best in me. But yeah, for the rest of our lives, we're we're going to just be people. But I think the the beautiful point that you made is when you recognize that you don't have to like hate yourself to do anything or decide you're going to change every last thing about yourself, um and you just hold yourself accountable by saying how did it feel when that was my response? How did it feel to move through that situation in that way? Okay, if I want to feel this way, how could I achieve that better next time? Versus, why the fuck did I do that? And, all the things that I was pretty accustomed to saying to myself. That's something that still comes up. Why did you do that? Why did you do that? And then I just slow down and go, no, 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 that's a fair question. Why was that my response?
Yeah.
But it's so different than shaming yourself to death than to just be like, "Hey, I could have felt better if I did that differently. So let's see what that was about."
And again, the shame is avoiding bigger emotions because we don't feel that we have the capacity to feel those things and to
Yeah.
process those things. So to be able to see it with context. When we do shame, there's no context
Right.
because many of us were never given context. We were just told it's right or wrong. There was no
Mhm.
context in between to get out of the right or wrong, good or bad. So when that negative bias and that negative talk comes in, it's because we have to learn to process and allow context in. But that takes its own work to allow that space to come in, because it's either right or wrong, that's it. We're just in judgment.
Right.
That's all we can process. We don't know how to process the context. But the more that you allow that, the more that there's a space. And I just, I know a lot of people want a utopia of a world, yet that will never exist. Okay? That's not how the world is. And we can agree to disagree. We can have different cultures, different religions without having to hate on each other, yet it not looking like utopia. Like water and oil just don't mix. There's nothing wrong with water. There's nothing wrong with oil. You could want to evilize one or the other just to justify why it's not mixing, or you can
Mhm.
just say they just don't mix. They're just 2 different
Yep.
elements, yet they can coexist in different ways.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we have made it a way that if you don't think like me, if you don't act like me, if you don't have the same beliefs, you're an enemy. And we don't even realize the hypocrisy that comes out of our mouths with the fear and with the hate,
Yeah.
because we
Mhm.
feel we're justified with it, where it's like, "Well, how about you start befriending some of that fear? Start befriending some of those biases and those thoughts that you're creating this kinda sheltered place for yourself." And recognize like, "Oh, well, they can do that and it's not harming me, it makes me uncomfortable, yet it's not doing any harm, so why can't I let that person be the way they are without interfering in that and making it that they have to be it like mine because mine's the only way?" And the more that
Mhm.
we engage with that, the more that we'll see harmony in the world. It's not about a utopia, there's no such thing as utopia.
Right.
Like, when you there I if utopia exists, a lot of things would die. It needs
Well, yeah,
contrast.
because you can't get where you're going without some struggle.
Yeah,
So, we're never like God, it's the way we talk about how we can be so grateful for the bad that we've experienced because we would never experience all of the peace without having that as a contrast. But yeah, and I think for me, because God, that's a big thing I struggle with. Not really as much anymore, but it's always kind of there. But before I could not handle if your belief was different, if you did things different. I mean, I lost friendships over some dumb shit. That was stuff I really carried shame about because I knew it wasn't logical, and but I didn't understand it. And so as I've kind of, grown through that, I recognize there are some things that don't align with me. And so if that's your thing, that's go do that thing. That's fine. But I don't necessarily want to be around it. But there are other things where, like you said, my fear, and truly guys, the fear really is, what if I'm wrong about my thing?
Mhm.
I mean, that's you're just looking for a way to defend your own thing when you get all frustrated at somebody else's thing. And that's been a big pill to swallow for me. It's embarrassing that it's something I still struggle with, but it's there. So it is what it is. Um, but yeah, I think that was, I couldn't be confident in any of the things that I believed to be my truth because I was needing all that external validation. And so I just wasn't around the people who were going to be aligned with some of the things that I was thinking or feeling or doing. And that was okay too. But I really thought, like, you gotta you gotta believe this way, or and some of the religious stuff, that's the thing I'm working through now, is like, after leaving religion, is to not be so triggered by other people's belief systems.
Yeah.
Um,
That's its own trauma too. People go
oh, for
through a lot
sure.
of trauma
That seems
because
to
of
be, like, bigger for me than most of the other things, is my religious trauma.
because it's
But
belief systems that you're having to dismantle, and that doesn't feel safe. And
at
that's
all.
really
Yeah.
warrior work to go through. And um, since I was young, I was born in the Catholic religion. So I was like treated like a hedonism because I questioned everything. And my mother used to be like a single mom and it's like, can you just like obey and stop saying things? Because I used to be
Uh-huh.
like, why does the priest only get to touch the Bible and none of us can touch the Bible? And why do I
Uh,
have to talk through the priest to talk to God? Like, why don't I have a main connection? And if God is an ever loving God and he forgives all our sins, why do we have to repent for our sins not to go to hell? Like, is he not forgiving? And all these things that just contradicted itself. I would just bring it up and it's like, stop questioning, stop questioning. So I've
mhm.
always had that in me to question and not yet there's other things that, the sexual part of Catholics because we were told that masturbation was an evil sin and that any kind of sexual urges were evil. So to be comfortable in my sexuality and then have, sexual abuse and everything else, that does a whole jumble with yourself.
Right.
So, navigating through, yet there's some things that I see some people like having difficulty and I'm like, "Oh, I was questioning that shit when I was young." So I didn't swallow a lot of things. So I was like
Oh, not me. I was
chastised
a
with a lot of things.
blind follower. Didn't
Yeah.
question a damn thing, and I had friends like you, but they made me really fucking uncomfortable, like the
Yeah.
way your mom was, because it was like, "Oh, we do not ask those questions," because, I was taught you'll go straight to hell for even asking it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's why, like, my 23-year-old has taught me so much just about the history of religion and whatever, and he was like, "Mom, that's how they do it. Like, they get you to not question, and then we get all of these results because you did what you were supposed to do." But he's like, "Don't hate yourself, you were born into that shit." Like, why?
Yeah.
Because it's just I cringe so hard at some of the things I've said to people just from this dumbass place because I didn't know what else to say, so I just said what would have been said to me even though I knew I would be so upset if someone else said that to me. But yeah, I think, like, I truly do wanna get to a place where I'm 100% comfortable being like, "It's fine that that's what they believe." Because I'm not fine with it. I'm not,
And
like,
I
I
think it's
in any
not
way.
I don't think it's I'm fine with what they're doing. I have to be comfortable with my uncomfortableness and be responsible for it. I think that's more of the
That's a good way to
question
put
of
that,
being
yeah.
empowered of not letting people be fine. I have to be in control of what makes me uncomfortable and to be with
Yeah.
that so that it doesn't hijack things.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
if people are gonna do
I have
okay.
friends that still believe, and I'm around them, and it doesn't bother me. It's
Mhm,
more the preachiness of things. Like, that's when I have to step away because I'm super triggered by it. Like,
mhm.
and I don't wanna say something shitty as fuck to somebody, but
And
I
it's
will.
being curious in those states of what's activating you. What wants to speak right now? What's
Yeah.
getting pushed in its cage that it's starting to rattle and you feel like you're gonna have to say some things and, feel like you have to correct or feel that you have to defend, and sometimes it's needed because some people
Sometimes
have
it is.
no idea what they're talking about and how much harm they're putting out. Yet other times it's being curious of what is actually being activated in me, and that's the work
Yeah.
of really, okay, this is what's going on internally. And sometimes we just don't have the time to process. Yet, the more that you create it as a practice, the more it's able to reveal itself right away of, oh, this is what happened when I was a child. And I didn't really get to feel what I felt at that time. And now I feel like I got to defend or say something to protect myself because I feel like I'm in an inferior state or whatever,
Mhm.
is going on inside. So, doing this work, I call it warrior work because there's so many facets of where you have to navigate in. And it's really having that radical compassion and recognizing, like, okay, you're going to remove this layer and everything's going to feel like I see it as Donkey Kong. I don't know if you've ever played Donkey Kong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there's this your level, right? And you're like, "Ah," and then you get in the whole level and you're, like, just trying to get to that next level, but you don't know what the next level is gonna look like, but this one, right, jump here, avoid this hole, da 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 da, this one's gonna pop out, and then you get to the next level and you're like, "What the heck is this?" Sometimes it's easy to navigate, other times it takes you, like, weeks to just get, and that's how our evolution is, of learning of ourselves and removing those layers. Some layers are gonna be easy, other layers is going to be tedious and take time. So that's
Mhm.
where there isn't this arrival, there isn't, and please, whoever is listening and myself, don't compare yourself to other people. Like, it's
Yeah.
very easy to get misled into that, to get again in the comfort of criticizing yourself because it's not good enough rather than be vulnerable and be accountable of staying steadfast in the path. Like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But sometimes we want to just devour the elephant and be like, what's the next elephant? I want the next one. I want the next one. Where it's like
Mhm.
one bite at a time and what's the journey? So there isn't, if you want a quick fix, you can go a quick fix. Just know that shit's going to land with you. It's like an elastic band. It's going to snap back at a certain point. So
Yeah.
you don't wanna leave certain parts of yourself. And you also
Yes.
want that accountability of, "I don't have the capacity right now, so this is what I'm doing," yet make it with a conscious choice, so that you don't have to do the work of bringing back and finding which splinters that you separated yourself, that you made that choice consciously. If it's not serving you, you understand that it's not serving you, yet this is the capacity I have, so that you can work with yourself, not against yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. Well, I've had such a beautiful time with you today. Tell us where we can find you.
Liftoneself.com. So that's LIFTONESELF.com. That's my website. You can find my podcast. You can find my social medias. You can find the one on one work that I do. I have a book that's going to be coming out. It's being edited right now. I
Oh,
also,
exciting.
yeah, thank you. And I also have some courses, emotional sobriety that I offer as a workshop so that people can dip their toes into it. So everything can be found on liftoneself.com.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I've had such a good time with you. I hope we can stay connected.
We will for sure. We've already been connected since you've been on my podcast. And I just want to thank you for the alchemy that you continuously keep doing, that you take those impurities and you turn them into gold. Yet you're not just keeping that gold for yourself, you're sharing it with others. and you are doing remarkable warrior work. So thank you for lighting this world like you do. And I want to remind you to please remember to be kind to yourself.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet. I'm gonna push stop, hang out for 1 sec.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share.
Emotional